This is Joe Pugh for IFLTV. We are joined over Zoom by Mr. Gareth A Davies. Gareth, it's been a very, very busy couple of days in the world of boxing, mainly heavyweight boxing. But first of
Yeah,
all, how are you?
very well. Thank you, Joe. It's always great to see you. Tuesday morning, no, Wednesday morning, ready to rock. Look, the week's getting away from me already. Ready to rock's been very, very interesting over the last few days, or maybe the last 5 days in the heavyweight division.
Yep, certainly. I did see you on Saturday when Derek Chisora dismantled Otto Wallin, so I'll get your opinion on that first. I spoke to you before the fight. You said it would be a close fight. Yeah, well, how did you see the fight overall?
It wasn't a close fight. I thought Derek won by 4 rounds, with the two knockdowns, the two 10-8 rounds, the ninth and the 12th. That first knockdown as well was like, you can just watch it over and over again. You're just looking at, did he trip? Did he trip over Derek's feet? Was it a delayed reaction, which I think is what it was? Um, it's not often you see someone stagger 7 paces back like he did. Brilliant performance by Derek as well. Gave it all the way to the end. Played possum in the corners when he was fatigued. Otto Wallin couldn't do anything with Derek. Derek just swarmed him all night. Barely took a round off. I thought it was 3 rounds each after 6. And then I thought Derek took over. 114, 112 on the cards, I didn't agree with. I think it was a big differential and a very convincing victory for Derek Chisora.
How shocked have you been by his past two performances when you look at Joe Joyce and Otto Wallin? On paper, they're some of his best wins of the 49 fights.
Yeah, well, he's got better in his late 30s anyway. He's a throwback to the 70s era. He's a different man. He's a different character. He's a different build. He was fun in the week as well. I mean, I got to experience the other end of Derek prodding and poking at you. He Otto Wallin gave him nothing in the build-up in fight week, so he had to find things to bounce off, to entertain, to sell the promotion. He's a master promoter now, which he's learned to do over 2 decades. He used to be genuinely volatile. Now he's controlled that volatility and distilled it into, as I say, a master promoter who knows he's loved by the fans. Look at the turnout there while you and Coogan stood in the shadows, on the backstage doing all the fighter interviews post-fight. Out in the arena, it was just a massive turnout from fellow boxers. Huge array of fighters there. Even Anthony Yard, friends with Frank Warren again, which is brilliant. But the heavyweights, some of his former opponents, Dillian Whyte, Joe Joyce there. It was amazing to be in the arena and around him, because there were even times after 5, 6 rounds where his eye was cut, we thought he's going to get stopped here and it's all going to fall flat. Yeah, it was a fairy tale 12 rounds for him, and he finished brilliantly. And it felt like the perfect time to walk away. And yet, in the heat of the end of the battle, when he's basking in the glory, they pull out those 3 posters of Usyk, Dubois, and Joshua, and he asked the crowd who he should fight next. Pushing for a big stadium fight. He doesn't want to give it up. As much as any of us think that Derek should watch his own health and his future health and all those things, he doesn't want to give it up. He loves the fame. He loves the glory. He can deal with the pain. He's physically as in good a shape he's ever been in. But it's the long-term effects that, you worry about him as someone that you like and care about.
Yeah, look, I think we all knew that he would have one more fight, the 50th fight. He's made no secret that he wants to get to that magic 50. But how hard will it be for him to hang the gloves up after the 50th if he performs like he has done for the past two fights?
I think difficult. It's going to be difficult for him to walk away anyway. I think the thing is with Derek, um, when he gets into camp, when he gets into shape, when he gets into war, being War, being his alter ego, he's so conditioned to do that. He's so impervious to pain. He can still keep trucking on. We've seen it time and time and time again. Unless he goes to that next level and he gets outboxed, or he gets, as we've seen against the Furies of this world, the Usyks, the Vitaly Klitschko 13 years ago, when he was a different shape as a man, but still incredibly tough. Um, I mean, there's even talk about him being installed in the top 10 rankings right now after Saturday night. Certainly, that was the talk in the Ring ratings chat, the Ring magazine ratings chat, which I don't wholly disagree with either. Um, the, the, it's going to be difficult for him to walk away. You saw the emotion that he felt when he arrived at the arena on Saturday night, but I think he's got young kids. He wants to sacrifice himself to the sport. He loves it. As I say, he's an entertainer. He definitely wants one more big fight. And is that Dillian Whyte if he beats Joe Joyce? That's an obvious opponent. Is it Jarrell Miller? Is it Deontay Wilder in one last throw? Is it Francis Ngannou in Africa? Those are the kind of fights that personally I could see him in, but I can't see him in against a Zhang, a Bacoli, a Joshua, a Dubois, um, an Usyk, or a Fury. I can't see him in against those guys. I mean, I don't think we'll see him fight Fury again, and I don't think we'll ever see him fight Joshua. But against the other guys, and I want to see him in against big concussive punchers. It helped him that Wallin isn't the biggest puncher in the world, but it also helped him that he took Wallin's soul away from him during that fight. Take nothing away from Derek. I know people are disappointed with Otto Wallin, but take nothing away from Derek's performance. It was brilliant.
Yeah, look, I want to pick up on Anthony Joshua because throughout Derek's kind of latter career and Anthony Joshua's championship career, they've always said they wouldn't fight each other because they are friends and they're under the same management banner at the moment. But it
Hmm.
feels like the past two fights that's kind of changed, and Derek Chisora said, "I would fight Anthony Joshua." You definitely rule that one out.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a good matchup for Derek. And I don't want to see him get badly knocked out. Anthony Joshua's a very dangerous puncher. We know obviously he lost his last fight against Andy Dubois and was hurt himself in the fight. But um, listen, if they want to put friendship aside and, kind of join in a big heavyweight fight, then of course I'd watch it. But I'm not sure that it's the right fight for Derek. If it happens, great. Obviously, I'll be there. I'll watch it. I'll write about it. I'll broadcast on it. Um, but no, you can't rule it out altogether. You're right. You're right to point that out. You can't completely rule it out because if it makes sense and they believe it will sell out Tottenham or wherever it's going to sell out, or even the O2 Arena, or the Co-op Live with the full 20,000, then fine. If they want to do it and it makes money for them and they have that fight, then great. But I mean, imagine saying Derek Chisora W over Anthony Joshua. You'd never have imagined that. Never ever have imagined it.
Does that mean he shaves your head, G?
No, no.
You're definitely not getting the head
The,
shaved.
the, the memes that I've seen of me with no hair mean that absolutely will he never shave my hair.
That's a shame. That'd do. I think that'd do more pay-per-views than the actual fight. That would.
Yeah, very funny. You stop egging it on, will you? But no, it was a funny moment. But I don't want to get rid of my old locks. They might not grow back again. You know.
No,
Um,
you wouldn't be the same without that hair, Gareth.
well, I'd be Yul Brynner or Right Said Fred, wouldn't I? I wouldn't be me for a while.
Right, moving on to 2 days later, that Monday, three big show announcements. The first
Yeah,
Queen's
let me pull them
fights
up.
on the
Yeah,
zone. You can, Gareth. We'll start off with the 5th of April. Heavy
yeah.
Impact live at the Co-op Arena. Three heavyweight fights. Dillian Whyte versus Joe Joyce, Lawrence Okoli versus Richard Riakporhe, David Adelaide versus Jamie TKV. You want heavyweights? April 5th is the night, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. So I'm just looking at those three fights, like you say. Look, Lawrence Cole, I'll go up. I think the fact there's four heavyweight fights on the card is brilliant for me. Delicious Ori making his
Yes.
pro debut. My word, is he a big boy, isn't he? You forget how big he is. And I thought, in comparison to all the other heavyweights there, and he was there on Saturday night as well. I thought, and I know Delicious a while now, and I think he did suffer a very bad decision at the Olympic Games in Paris, and I wrote about it in detail for the Telegraph. I've watched that fight three times, and I cannot see how he lost. I think having him on the card, having David Adelaide against TKV, Jamie TKV, I like that. I really like that. Fun fight, good fight for Adelaide, but a really good fight for TKV for Jamie. If he gets a victory over David Adelaide, that really projects him. And then Lawrence Okoli against Richard Riakporhe, the fight we never got at cruiserweight. Why didn't we ever get it at cruiserweight? We now get it at heavyweight. I see Lawrence Okoli as a big favourite in that. But I think Richard's body will really respond. I think if it doesn't work for him, we might see him fighting at Bridgerweight, which makes sense. But that's a great fight. And then, the old guards, if you like, another last chance saloon fight, it will be called, or one of their last dances. Joe Joyce and Dillian Whyte, who are always destined to meet in this era at some point. So really looking forward to that card. I think it's fantastic.
Who do you think's favourite for that fight? Dillian Whyte and Joe Joyce.
Oh, oh, it's a really good question. I want to say marginally Dillian Whyte. He wants to land that big left hook, but Joe Joyce is not going to be happy after losing on points to Derek Chisora in a very close fight, and certainly not being knocked down towards the end. Joe's got a difficult job at the moment. Is it 3 on the bounce? No, he had a win
He
in
beat
between.
Cash Ali in between the
He
two
got a
Zhang
win in
fights.
between, but not the same level,
Mm.
Ali. I think it's going to be a fun build-up. I mean, he's so relaxed, Joe, that you can't get under his skin, and Dillian likes to get under fighter's skin sometimes. And he won't wind. He's not really going to wind Dillian up. Dillian was trying to wind him up yesterday, saying he was buffering, or on Monday saying he was buffering because he takes his time to answer. But Joe always takes his time to answer. People saying, oh, concerns about him, but I don't agree with that. Who's the favourite? I'm going to say Dillian marginally.
Do you think the winner of that fight gets that big roll of the dice, that big heavyweight title fight, or top five name?
What, the winner of White and
Yeah,
Joyce?
Joyce.
No, I think they get Chisora.
Okay, okay.
I think if they haven't made it an eliminator for anything, have they?
Not as far as we know.
No, no. Big five. So the big five: Usyk, Fury, Parker, Dubois, Parker. No, because I think Zhang and Kabayel are obviously taken up next weekend.
Yes.
Ajegba and Bakoli particularly are taken up in May. No, the winner might get a Fabio Wardley, who's probably just there inside the top 10 at the moment as well. No, I don't think they get a top 5 fight, but I think they get on undercards in. Like if one of those was to fight Fabio Wardley, if they looked impressive against each other on April the 5th, I could see them fighting a Fabio Wardley on a big card as a co-main.
They're all fighting each other now, Gareth. So
They are. Well,
so
that's the best thing about and all the naysayers on Saudi investment, however long it lasts, it may last forever, it may last to 2030, but that's not their plan. Their plan is to create a sustainable sport that's working, that the fans are coming to, that they recognize the champions, and we're seeing that coming, those pieces being put into place on the chessboard.
Okay, the next fight announced was Anthony Kakachi versus Lee Wood. We see Kakachi vacate his world title. We still got the IBO on the line, but when you talk about exciting fights, it doesn't actually get more exciting, does it?
Well, you can just see them both tearing into each other. Full Nottingham crowd, 8,000, 9,000 in there. And, obviously Lee Wood gets home advantage. Kakache is a road warrior. He's been brilliant over the last year and a half. And yeah, it's going to just delight. It's going to be a great night.
A fight that I certainly didn't see coming. We all hear rumours, and very much took me by surprise was Josh Taylor versus Echo Esserman. Homecoming for Josh up in Scotland. Yeah, bit random this one, but I like it.
I do as well. I mean, obviously, it's sometime in May. They haven't got the date on it yet. Um, Josh being able to fight at welterweight, that extra £7, it's time. He's in his early 30s, or mid 30s almost. I think
Yeah,
Josh
I think he's
33,
34.
34. Um, I think it's a good fight for him. Echo Esserman, um, Echo Esserman.
Yes, correct.
That's a tongue twister this morning. No, a great guy, very physical. He's going to challenge Josh physically. Obviously, Josh is the former 10 stone undisputed champion. It's time for him to move on and get out of that division and look after his body. I'm really looking forward to the fight. Home crowd, home support. He always performs well in Scotland, so I think it's a great fight. It'll be a great night, and they'll stack it with loads of great fights. Brilliant announcement. Very exciting. Obviously, and it pinions so brilliantly with Frank and the Queensbury stable moving on to DAZN, which is now a very powerful force in boxing.
Certainly, just a couple more, Gareth. We see lots of U-turns, switches rounds last week with Saul Canelo Alvarez. One point he was fighting Terence Crawford, then it was Jake Paul, and now we know he signed a four-fight deal with Riyadh season. Are you pleased that traditional boxing prevailed over
Yeah, I
Jake
think this
Paul?
is the right thing. He's one of the pound for pound kings. He'd have had to play the game with Jake Paul. I think we know that as boxing insiders, we've watched a lot of boxing, that there's no way Jake Paul would have been able to hang um, as a 100% boxer with Saul Canelo Alvarez. So there would have been a game being played. Yeah, a big promotion, and yeah, it would have worked in that sense. But Saul Canelo Alvarez is still a very active top five, top six pound for pound fighter, and we don't want him taken over into that pantomime that he would have to play. I think it's brilliant the work that Turkey Al Sheikh did to flush that out, to do a four-fight deal with him. Just shows what a diplomat and a businessman he is. Very clever the way he did it. I loved his transparency in explaining the whole process. He didn't explain it to blow himself up. He explained it, say, this is what I want to do because these are my ambitions in the sport. So I've been on side with that the whole time since the Saudi Arabians came into the sport. His vision is clear to me. I think obviously we watch the things that they're doing, but I think they're all for the betterment of the sport. That's the intention, passion, zeal, and ambition. Um, I like the fact that he gets a challenge for one of the belts. He held them all. Obviously, William Skull's got one of the belts who looks like him in May. And then the big one, Terence Crawford and Saul Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas in Septiembre, hopefully in the Raiders Stadium. It needs a big stadium, in my view. This is a hark back fight to um, a Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, when Leonard steps up and uses all his skills to beat the heavy punching southpaw and brilliant granite chin that Marvin Hagler is in his last ever fight. It's that kind of throwback. I still think from this point Crawford can win it. He's grown into his body. It's going to be an amazing event. I think it'll do millions in pay-per-view, maybe 2 million, maybe more. I think they might have to look at the pricing for it if they're going to make a profit. But overall, with the 4 fights, I hope we get Hamza Shiraz if everything works out for him against Canelo. And it's great to have him on board with the group that's working together. Warren and his team and his sons on DAZN, Eddie Hearn on DAZN, Oscar De La Hoya on DAZN. Top Rank now having to make a new deal with ESPN and that ending. That'll go somewhere good. They're very formidable, Top Rank. The only people on the outside at the moment are Al Heyman, Premier Boxing Champions, and people like Gervonta Davis. And I say the outside, they're perfectly capable of doing what they need to do. They've got Amazon Prime, which is huge as well. I think boxing's in a very, very good place.
So do I. Mike Bacoli, last week, Ben Shalom said that it was signed, it was done for Anthony Joshua and Martin Bacoli. Eddie Hearn's now come out and said, "What are you on about?" Basically, there's no truth in that whatsoever. I know Ben said a lot of this to TalkSport. Yeah, what do you make of that? That was very strange.
What what well, I clarified it with Coogan last week, I think.
Okay,
Um, and I'll say it again though, because I spoke to Eddie Hearn last week very briefly and Frank Smith, and they said we haven't had any conversations with Martin Bacoli. And I spoke to Freddie Cunningham up in Manchester when he was around. I just double checked when I was in Manchester. Obviously, Freddie Cunningham, part of Joshua's management team. Obviously, they're involved with Derek Chisora. Um, he said, no, we didn't have any talk. I think they were trying to wish it into existence. I spoke with Coogan about this last week because it pricked my ears to hear that. So I needed to get it clarified because it didn't make sense. That's a very, very big announcement, a very, very big fight. If Anthony Joshua is fighting Martin Bacoli in Africa in the summer, because it rules out a Tyson Fury fight, which is still one of the biggest fights in the sport, certainly in British sporting terms anyway. So it didn't surprise me that there was no sense in it whatsoever, that there was no reality, but I think they were just trying to talk it into existence. And I spoke to Ben Shalom. I didn't speak to him, but I had a text exchange with him. He said it was just banter from himself at the time.
okay. Two more. Alexander Usyk was in London this weekend. Photographed at Sheesh restaurant, which very nice, Alexander. Everyone's talking about, including myself and yourself, about who Anthony Joshua fighting, Dubois Parker, but we haven't actually really spoke about who you think Usyk will fight next. Yeah, when and where do you think, or when and who do you think we will see him fight?
Well, I think he'll fight for the undisputed title again, even though he never lost the undisputed. I think he'll fight the winner of Dubois and Parker. I see Dubois as the favourite in that. Um, and we can go over next week if you want to go over the card, the Riyadh card, the amazing last crescendo card. I think the logical thing, and Usyk seems to follow logic when he fights people, is to fight the winner of that. And that looks like if Dubois wins, he fights Dubois again. If Parker wins, he's never fought Parker, so that makes sense. And Parker gets a chance at the undisputed. And I see it as a summer fight in a big stadium somewhere, maybe in Riyadh, if not elsewhere. But I think it's Daniel Dubois next if Dubois wins, and I think Dubois will win. But I mean, that's just my pick, and that's what I've nailed to the wall. I'm not writing Parker off because Parker's got much bigger physically, and he's very mature. if he can nullify Dubois early, then he could take over in the fight. But I think Dubois is very, very dangerous right now. Self-belief, route one, wants to hurt people. He's got very good boxing skills, got the fundamentals and massive power, and he believes in himself.
Okay, last one.
Who
Saturday
else?
night.
Who else do you think Usyk will fight then?
I think there's a chance he might fight Opetaya if Opetaya decides to move up. I think there's a hunger for that fight.
I see that as well. I see that as well. I do agree with that, and I'd overlook that. Oh, I've talked about it. I have talked about it before. I talked about it with Opataya, um, and I don't see. But I think Opataya wants to become undisputed in the cruiserweight division first, doesn't he?
I think
But
that's
in this
going to
day and
run
age,
for
you
later
never know.
this
If the
year.
right money's on the table, he might go straight up and do it.
We will have to wait and see. This Saturday, Gareth, we've got Jack Catterall versus Barbosa for the WBO interim 140-pound title. Uh, yeah, a win against Barbosa and Jack Catterall solidifies, if he hasn't already, in those upper echelons of the 140-pound division, which we know is probably the most competitive division in the world right now.
Yeah. Look, that 140 10 stone division's always been very competitive. Um, I think you can count Jack Catterall as undefeated, even though he's got one loss in his 31, and Barboza is undefeated in 31 with some great victories. Jose Benavides. I'm thinking Pedraza. Has he beaten Pedraza as well? I think he has. Zapata
He had the
uh,
very controversial one against McComb, which,
against Sean McComb.
yeah,
Sean McComb. He's not a big puncher, but he's a very fine boxer. And Catterall's the same. He's very good at going the distance. Big, broad shell. Very hard to knock out of shape. Very good at timing things. Has looked very good against Regis Prograis, I thought. Um, Looked very good against Jose Linares, and obviously avenged defeat, on paper defeat, to Josh Taylor. So, he's in his prime. And I think if he looks good against Barbosa, and I think he will, it's a really good fight. It's a really good technical fight. I think he'll win on points. They should be pursuing a fight with Tio Lopez if they can after that.
do you think he could
Um,
beat Tio Lopez?
I'd make Lopez the favourite, but Jack, you can't write Jack off at world level and elite level because he might well be elite. And it's the Tio Lopez fight that would let us see that, because Lopez at his very best, and I watched him live against Josh Taylor at his very best, he's a very, very dangerous man. Very dangerous man. And we saw it against Vasily Lomachenko as well. Very dangerous man.
Excellent, Gareth. I think we've covered just about every topic in boxing right now. Anything else you'd like to say before we close off?
No, just keep it calm, keep it real. Peace out.
And you're definitely not going bald.
Not anytime soon.
What would there be a price like that
No,
someone would have
no,
to
there's
pay
no,
for you?
look, go away.
£1 million?
No, I wouldn't do it for £1 million. I don't need to. Don't want to. Don't need the £1 million.
Gareth, thank you very much, and I
Always a
will catch
pleasure, my
up with
friend.
you very soon. Cheers.